All right, Kevin back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I'm here with Deborah Vreman. Deborah, welcome. So awesome to have you on the show today.
Great. Thanks so much, Kevin. I appreciate the warm welcome, and I'm very happy to be here as well today.
Well, I'll tell you, I have, since we had our first conversation and got to know each other a little bit, I have been looking forward to this. I want to give a shout out to Lynn Wansu as well, because Lynn was the one that originally introduced you and I. And I'll
Correct.
tell
Yeah.
you what a beautiful way to meet somebody new, which is like through somebody that you've already got a relationship with, and you just love that person, you appreciate them. Lynn, when she was like, Kevin, you should really talk to Deborah because I think she'd be a great guest for your podcast. And anybody that Lynn would say that about, I'm like, I'm all in, you know.
Okay,
And
brilliant. Yeah, I
so,
love it.
what a testament right there to the power of right relationships, which of course is what this podcast is all about. And so I want to start off by just setting some context and letting our listeners know about you and what you do and all that. So let's just start by talking about, what do you do, Deborah, and who do you serve?
Okay, great question. My title, I'm a regional vice president of a
Okay.
financial company. And really what that means is I own my own agency. I'm in the process of opening up other agencies across Canada. And it's exciting because our primary clients, people that we serve, are individuals who are I call them the backbone of our country. So people, they're working hard, they're paying taxes, they're raising the families, they've got that next generation in mind that they're fueling. But when it comes to finances, often that market is ignored quite
Okay.
substantially. So people don't have the tools, they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the education, or they don't really have like I call it a money coach who's going to work with them over time to realize really the things they would love to see in their life. We always have that list of, yeah, I'd love to do that. I'd love to do that. And either, don't have the tools, don't know where to start, or don't have someone that can assist them. So
Yeah.
that's very much what we do is, the education process around finances and then lifetime relationships to
Okay.
help people achieve those things that are really important, right at the heart for them.
Yeah. Wow. So, what inspires you most about the work you get to do, Deborah, and the impact you get to make?
I'm going to definitely say people. Everyone is so uniquely different. Their situation is uniquely different. I love getting to know people and what drives them because then you can really help them the best fashion when you know why they're here, what's important to them. Then you can get, I kind of feel like you get inside that picture or that scenario that's going on and get to the heart of what does this person or what does this family really need? What do they want? What can I help them with to, get them from point A to point B or C or D or E or F, however, many
Yeah.
goals and how long out that stretches. But yeah, really having a good understanding of the person and what's truly important to them in their life.
Yeah. Very cool. How did you even get into doing this kind of work? And have you had entrepreneurial, like, I caught the entrepreneurial bug when I was in high school and I joined FBLA, Future Business Leaders of America. And I was like, wow, what an awesome experience this was. And
Yeah.
I had the entrepreneurial bug ever since. How did you end up becoming an entrepreneur, Deborah?
Okay. Yeah, good question. So since you brought up, way, way, way back, I'll start way, way, way back. So I was in Girl Guides, brownies, and then Girl Guides, and of course, one of the things that's part of that curriculum is you sell Girl Guide cookies, right?
Yeah.
And I disliked that
You
immensely.
didn't like going selling
I
cookies,
did
huh?
not, and my dad would actually buy a case from me every year instead of me going out.
Instead
Not
of you
so
going out and
great
selling them.
little. No, I wasn't there. So,
That sounds like us. We buy them and go sell them.
okay, yeah. Um, but as I remember in high school, that all changed. There was different events we were raising money for, whether it's a band trip or something like that. We one specific event. We went to a mall and talked to people, and I totally loved that. So that change, I would say, came into high school, into my early teens.
Okay.
And literally, other than when I was in university, I've never had a job. I've always been an entrepreneur.
Wow. Wow. There's some similarities between my our stories because I ended up joining the army right out of high school. Only because I was gonna go to college, but my father got diagnosed with cancer at the beginning of my ninth grade year and passed away at the end of my 10th grade year. And once mom became the sole income earner, college was off the table. And so I ended up joining the military right out of high school for 4 years, just to kind of, my dad was in the military and it was a great experience. But after that, I ended up coming back to Seattle and was trying to figure out how do I get money together to start my own business, because that's what I thought I needed to do. And my buddy Scott was like, well, Kev, go down to Fisherman's Terminal, get yourself a job on one of those fishing boats and go to Alaska. Those guys make all kinds of money. And so that's what I did. I worked as a commercial fisherman on Alaska's Bering Sea for the next 7 years of my life.
Wow.
And I
Okay.
saved up money to start my own business, and in '95 we did that, and I've been unemployed ever since.
Yeah.
It's,
Unemployed is great. Yeah.
yeah,
I believe at this point in time, and probably in your case too, we are unemployable.
totally, totally.
Yeah.
I could not imagine getting a job and going to
No.
work somewhere. I just couldn't even imagine that.
Yes.
And
Yes.
yet, it's not like we don't have work ethic. I'll bust my butt sometimes doing what I do. Unfortunately
Yeah.
now, now that I'm getting older, I just turned 60 this year. The work that I get to do isn't physically manual labor, and
Okay.
I love doing what I do. But yeah, I couldn't even imagine getting a job for somebody else.
hmm Yeah. The mindset is entirely different. And of
Yeah,
course, one thing we love as entrepreneurs is what we're building is for us and our family and our future,
yeah,
which is
yeah,
different when you have a job, right? You're
yeah,
helping somebody
totally,
else fulfill.
totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So from your vantage point right now, Deborah, what's your vision for your company going forward from here?
Yes. So I'm working on opening up three more offices.
Okay.
Locations to be determined at this point. I've got some um, ideas of out west. I've got some good contacts in Alberta, and probably the other two offices would be here in Ontario.
Okay.
Um, what people are experiencing financially, it doesn't matter if you're in London or you're in Vancouver or you're in Prince Albert, like people are struggling financially. So, there's a large market to serve.
Mhm.
So that's my, most immediate goal that I'm working on is having other agencies and other locations so we can, serve broader markets.
Okay.
Yes.
Very good. Very good. Well, okay, so now that we've got some context set here, I want to switch gears just a little bit. I want to move into talking about the relationship aspect of all this. And so Deborah, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons who completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And I'm really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
Okay. Yeah, excellent. Definitely I'm going to go with persons,
Okay.
because there's several people and from different perspectives, opening up doors in different avenues.
Yeah.
So first of all, being introduced to the financial world, was one of the most enlightening things that happened in my life and one of the best decisions I believe I ever made. I always say my kids decision number one, and getting into this field decision number two are the top two decisions that I've moved forward with. I used to run a music school. So my background, I'm a classically trained musician. I ran a music school, very much like a conservatory type environment for 11 years. Um, and then it was time for a change. Things changed in my life, and I knew looking down the road, if I kept doing what I was doing, I didn't like the future that I was seeing. It was too much struggle, too much work, and not the rewards that I was looking for. So I was open and and when you're open, things come your way. So then I was introduced to this world. And a fellow by the name of Dave Francis, he actually ran the office that I was trained in. Brilliant man. He's built himself an incredible business. So his mentorship meant a lot and um, opened up a brand new world that I didn't even know existed. So he was definitely a huge, huge help in that area. I'm also going to talk about my dad. My dad was an incredible human being, supported me always, whatever endeavor I was involved in, he was there not only as a cheerleader, but what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And he did whatever he could do to support, my success. So that was always, always underneath me to push me up, which I,
Yeah. Yeah.
to this day appreciate and know I wouldn't be where I am today
You
without that.
bet. Yeah.
I'm going to give a shout out to Lynn. Again, she introduced me to, I've done a lot of, self-improving, attending courses, lots of reading, but it was definitely Lynn that switch flick or the flick of the switch.
Uh-huh.
And it was just, whoa, okay, again, here's a whole new world, a whole new space that I wasn't aware was there. And that's been exceedingly helpful in the expansion of my business.
Okay.
So I've worked with Lynn for about 2 years now. So, this expansion is very much because now I'm aware and I see and believe and can see that coming to fruition. So
Wow. That's
there's
awesome.
more, but those three are just, my dad with the just eternal support, and then Dave opening up that whole financial world, and then Lynn opening up that world of what do you love, what do you want, how do you best want to serve your highest being,
Yeah.
and I love that.
And that, boy, that piece right there, that makes all the difference in the world. When we can really look at, what do we love doing? Who do we love serving? And just how we can bring our gifts, our unique gifts and God-given gifts to the table for doing that. And I don't know about you, Deborah. It took me a while to like figure that out.
Mhm.
But once I got that figured out and dialed in now, man, it's been such an amazing ride. And I look at, I mean, even starting this podcast, 3.5 years ago, I mean, it wasn't like things weren't going good before the podcast. They definitely were, but there was also definitely before the podcast and after the podcast.
Right.
And they're two different lives now, and it's been
Mhm.
quite an experience. And I just look at the amazing entrepreneurs that I get to connect with because of hosting this podcast that I wouldn't have ever even got connected with if not for the podcast. And I'm so grateful for that. And so if you look at these three relationships that you mentioned, and I'm sure you'd be able to come up with a number of examples for this.
Yep.
I just want to challenge you to come up with one. But if you look, what is this situation where you personally got to make this really substantial impact? And maybe even in the moment, it might have surprised you a little bit like, wow, look what just took place there. And you also know that would have never been possible if not for your relationship with either one of these three people that you've mentioned.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of components to that question. So, um, I can come up with a couple of examples.
Okay.
So, we'll start off with, the introduction into the financial world and the impact I've been able to make, like on a
Sure.
client basis. Let's use that as the first one. So,
Okay.
um, I've been really, really fortunate. I grow my business on, it's a referral-based business exclusively. And I've been really fortunate that people have been, happy. They've been grateful and introduced me to a lot of people that they know, family, friends, that they would like to have that benefit as well.
Mhm.
So, there's one couple I think of, I started working with them. They were still, working age, doing the best they could. We encouraged them and we were able to find extra money to help them, put away a little bit more and build their assets and their coffers. And they had a dream, and their dream was, okay, when we retire, we want to buy this. They had motorhome already picked out, right? It was in their vision. I'm sure they had a picture of it hanging in their home. That's what we want to do. We want to travel North America. That was their thing.
Wow.
So, I probably worked with them about 15 years before I finally got the phone call and they said, Deborah, we're retiring. We want to come in and see you. So this was great. And we set the appointment time. My office has a window to the outside, so I can actually see people as they're approaching my office. And
Okay.
they were coming up the sidewalk holding hands. And if not literally skipping, they were skipping. Like just the energy was great. They was like, we made this happen. And it was just wonderful to be a part of that and assist them with their goal because they already knew what they wanted. And, my job was just to direct how we can make that happen in their time frame. And we did it. So, they had the resources, they were able to purchase the motorhome, and they've done a ton of exploring around North America. So I just
Wow.
love that, a couple in their 60s, they look like they're 16,
Yeah.
just met on their first date. They're having the time of their life. And it's all because they had the resources to live the life that they designed.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I totally saw you just light up as soon as you started telling that story and stuff.
Okay.
And the
Yeah.
smile came across your face. When you get the recording, you'll have to check it out because
Right.
it was just really cool to see just the pride that you had in them as clients and stuff, and just what they were able to accomplish with your help and stuff. And
Right.
man, I can only imagine how amazing that makes you feel being able to have that kind of an impact.
Yes. Yeah.
And
And
so,
it's a relationship. Like, it's not client, representative at that point. It's like we're friends.
yeah, yeah,
And, it morphs into that whole next level. And, the respect on both sides and appreciation. It's pretty awesome when relationships develop to that level.
yeah.
So another story would be a large part of what I do is help people transition from a job to a career.
Okay.
So I do a lot of training and licensing with representatives. So I met this awesome young woman. She has three little girls. She's sweet, motivated. She's got some goals she really wants to accomplish. And we met. Um, she, really liked a lot of the things we were sharing. She went home and talked to her husband. And the first thing her husband says is, you know what? I should take this course with you so I can support you as well. I thought, man, what a great opportunity that opened up where these two can now move into a space they've never been in before. They've never, number one, run a business, but number two, never worked together. And now they've had this world open. And I feel that because I remember that feeling. It was just like, whoo, here's a whole new world opening up. Where is it going to take us? Where are we going to be in 2 years or 3 years? And now they have so many more options on the table than they did with just, their jobs. And they like their jobs and they're well-paid jobs, but now there's more options and they're seeing that. And it's really just inspiring and again feels great to say, wow, I was able to introduce them to something that literally can open up the world to them with what they want to do moving forward for themselves and their three lovely girls. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That is really awesome. That is really awesome. So, well, I'm just trying to think how I want to phrase this. Um, you've been doing what you do for a long, how many years now have you been doing this?
ooh, quarter of a century, 25 years we
Wow.
celebrated in May. Yeah.
Wow. Time flies, doesn't it?
Ooh, do you want to believe it?
Yeah, yeah. So, um, well, what? So you mentioned that you'd like to open some more offices, three more offices and stuff, so you can just expand your reach and impact more people's lives and stuff.
Right.
And knowing having had the experience that you've had, and creating the not just client kind of a relationships, but just really personal relationships with people, which I totally get it because I do the same exact thing and stuff.
Mhm.
What would you say to another entrepreneur who maybe, maybe they haven't quite placed the value on relationships that you have. And what would you, because, in my mind, as an entrepreneur, relationships are our most valuable asset. Everything else stems from that. And so what would you say for that entrepreneur that may not be at that place yet, but they've been listening to this podcast and stuff, and they're like, you know what, man, I think there's something to this. And what would you
Mhm.
say to that entrepreneur?
Yeah, and I can tell we're in alignment with that same thing. Relationships it's everything, right? Um, a saying that I heard decades ago, totally love it. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
Um, that statement, it can be trite and just sort of tossed off, but like when you really take the time to listen to what you're saying, it's so true. People want to know where your heart is. They want to know where your intention is. They want to know that you're thinking about them and their family. You're not, calculating how much money you're going to make off of this client,
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with people when they're training them. Of course, you're expanding your business and it will be profitable for you and good for you, but people want to know that you're going to be there to help them through whatever it is that they're going to be need help through in all the good stuff, but even when in the stuff is not so good, you're going to be there and you're going to make sure that it's resolved. And I have that conversation with my clients. I said, I will not stop calling you until this is resolved. I'm not going to, leave you in the dark. I'm going to be there. And you can tell that they know I'm going to be there. Like they believe it. Yeah, Deborah will call me. Deborah will get this worked out. And, between myself and my team, we do because um, that is gold because most people don't do that.
Yeah.
You can really, sort of rise to that five, top 10% by having that kind of integrity. I'm not just there, when things are great and you're, moving forward and handing me a check. I'm there when there's an issue. We're going to make sure we get this resolved because I've made that commitment to you.
Yeah.
So I have, a great team of people that help support me so we can uphold that promise that we've made to, people working in our organization as well as our clients. Um, but the personal also goes to get in people's space. Zoom is wonderful, and obviously that's how we're meeting today. I'm in Ontario, you're in Seattle. It couldn't really happen any other way. Um, but when possible, go see people at their home. I prefer those types of meetings to people coming in my office because then again, you really get to know the individual, what's important to them. Do they have a dog? You know the name of the dog, you know what their kids are studying, or they do dance or ballet or whatever that is. You're more relatable and you can relate to them. And
Yes.
like again, people just feel that. Um,
Yeah.
but a big part I'm going to say is be a fantastic listener.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's what I found, and I've always been this naturally curious person. I was this way when I was a kid. And it sometimes, my wife is always like, we've been together. Well, we celebrated 20 years married this year. And so we've been together a while. And I always ask questions because I'm just curious. And she brings that up to me a lot. She goes, sometimes I irk her, because and I'm like,
enough,
honey, you
Kevin,
got to know
enough.
by now. This is just me. But I love talking with entrepreneurs. I
Mhm.
love asking questions of them. I love finding out what they're working on, what's got them excited, what challenges they're dealing with, what opportunities they're trying to take advantage of. And I just end up defaulting to like, well, who do I know that might be able to help them with this?
Right.
And then I end up making those introductions and stuff. But what I have found is that just by me showing up and being me and just being this naturally curious guy who asks questions, and then when they start talking with me, I because people like wonder, like they want to go to networking situations. They're like, well, what do I talk about? I'm like, you don't got to talk about anything. Just ask a good question and let them talk.
And
And
people
then
will think you're an amazing conversationalist
totally
when
they
you just
will.
ask those
Yes.
questions. And
Yes.
people love talking about themselves, right?
Yes. Yes.
Because if you figure in a course of a day how many people actually want to or ask you anything about yourself, right?
Yep.
You'll go
Yep.
through your whole day and you do this, whatever is required, but nobody actually says, So how are you doing today, Kevin?
Yeah.
What's on your mind? What are you jazzed about?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we end up giving them this gift that they hardly ever get, which is this gift of just feeling seen, heard, and understood, just by asking questions and then being genuinely interested in hearing more from them. And when they answer us, we'll ask more. I mean, that's all I do in these interviews is we have a conversation and one question leads to the next, to the next, to the next. And we have this whole conversation, and
Yeah.
that's what people want. And man, I mean, it's a powerful thing, and you're right. It makes people, just feel so good around being around us because they just like the feeling they have when they're around us. And of course, with you, I'm preaching to the choir on that, but this is more
Yeah.
benefit for the listeners.
Yes, yes. Well, I had a really interesting experience. One Christmas, I was sending out messages on my phone, and of course, I've got a large contact list, and a name pops up, and you actually get a feeling when you see the name about that individual, right? Like that a feeling hits you immediately when you see that name. And I don't know why on that particular occasion, I was sitting in a Starbucks and just really relaxed doing it, but it just struck me when people hear my name, what feeling is invoked?
Yeah, yeah,
And, since then I've been consciously paying even more attention. When people hear my name, do they feel like smiling? Do they go, wow, yeah. You want that feeling to be generated right from the sound of your name.
yeah,
And then
yeah,
yeah, people want you around. They want you in your life. They believe that you can take them to a place that they can't get on their own.
yeah.
And that's why they would love to have you in their life. You make their life, you enhance their
Yes,
life.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation today. And for anybody that's listening to this right now, Deborah, going, wow, Kev, I really like Deborah. I like some of, what she's sharing here. And I just love how she shows up. And maybe they're curious about some of the stuff that you shared. And maybe they're thinking that you might be able to help them, or maybe they know somebody that they're thinking of and stuff. Any websites, any resources we can share with folks?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, email is always a great way to
Okay.
contact. I would go that route because
Okay,
then I'm
perfect.
I'm personally engaged and I like that personal engagement from the
Okay.
get-go.
Okay.
So do you just want me to share it with you right
Yeah,
now?
we can share it. And I've already got your email, so I'll make sure we include your email. But
Yeah.
yeah, we can share it too. And then I'll
Um,
also include it with the show
okay,
notes and stuff.
great. So D as in Delta, V as in Victor, R is in Romeo, E is in Echo, M is in Mother, A is in Alpha, N is in November at
Okay.
primerica.com.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, so
Perfect.
that's a great place to engage. And then, as I said, come directly to me so I can, make personal contact, which
Yeah.
which
Awesome.
is good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Any last thing that you feel led to share, Deborah, before we call it a wrap?
Yeah, I actually just wanted to highlight something that you said a few minutes ago because it's simple but brilliant, which is the be yourself. Like you're that comfortable just to be who you are. You don't need to be a super polished version of anybody else.
Yeah.
Just, yourself, and then people can relax into that space and be themselves. And and you can
That's
have
right.
a really genuine, meaningful conversation or connection.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, man, that's such a big deal right there. That because I know, man, when I was trying to learn business and stuff, and I'd learn from lots of different sources, but I would sometimes in the back of my head, think, if I was just more like that guy, I'd be more successful.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily true at all. We just
No.
be us.
Yeah, we overestimate other people's gifts and we
Totally.
underestimate ourselves, right? So,
Yes.
again, understanding that everything we do influences people,
Yeah.
either good, not so good. So, just be aware that you can really influence to the betterment every interaction by
Yeah.
just saying, yeah, I'm going to be myself and I'm going to be there. I'm going to listen genuinely and offer whatever assistance that I have in my power to help people with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Deborah, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation today. And just, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you. And I am excited to get this out there and share it with folks. So thanks so much, Deborah.
Wonderful. Kevin, my pleasure, and I appreciate the invitation. And this has been it's been just a joy. I really enjoyed myself.
Absolutely. Absolutely.